Hey, how you doing? Welcome to Shadow at Night, everybody. It's Thursday, February the 16th, 2024. On the show tonight, retired forestry technician and law enforcement in Bedford, Nova Scotia, Peter MacIsaac. He's got some hair-raising stories to tell us, but we're having some technical difficulties at the moment, so when they are resolved, Peter will be joining the show at some point, hopefully in the next couple of minutes. Hopefully we can get past these things and get on with an interesting show tonight, because some of the things he was telling me earlier this afternoon were kind of blood-curdling. Also, Justin Trudeau in Winnipeg and unhinged, talking about Pierre Poilievre as though Poilievre is the ideologically driven one, and he would rather see the country burn and die for his idea. I mean, I can't believe that these left-wing media reporters let him get away with this. It's just mind-blowing to me. I mean, because he's not answering any questions directly. Yes, the questions are getting answers, just not the questions that were asked. And he goes into the high drama mode, Trudeau does. You know, that completely and totally self-righteous, heart-bleeding. It's just enough to make you cringe. Or worse. So, Trudeau, unhinged. We have video of that. We also have the RCMP. There was apparently some kind of a survey done through the RCMP, and a lot of the RCMP officers during the time of the convoy felt remorse and shame. And that story is going to be coming up as well. There are some rumors, and I'm not going to say that this is a verified thing. I'm just going to throw this out there as rumor, and I want you to take it at that. It's very important that you take it as that, because Trudeau will deny it. Every member of the Liberal Party will deny it. But from what we understand, Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and the former governor of the Bank of the United Kingdom, is going to be taking over as leader of the Liberal Party. And we hear it's going to happen in the next couple of months as the parties gear up for that October 2025 election. And speaking of 2025, it looks like the Online Streaming Act the implementation of the Online Streaming Act has been delayed until late next year. The CRTC came out with that news yesterday. So we've got a lot to cover. I did play an episode of the Celtic Canuck on my show last night. I think it was last night, maybe the night before, but I played that during the extension. I want everybody to hear it tonight. And then I want you guys to go over to her YouTube channel and subscribe, because she puts out some fantastic content. And it doesn't take long to listen to. Unlike my show, which is an hour, and then it goes even longer on the extension on the website, shadowdavis.com. Her content is maybe 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I keep begging her, please, Celtic Canuck, make it longer. And she hasn't heeded my requests just yet, but hopefully she will soon. So Peter MacIsaac is coming up on the show in just a couple of minutes from Bedford, Nova Scotia. Shadow at Night live stream brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The immune gummies are here. Simplify your daily immune support with convenient and delicious Nano Silver immune gummies. Each serving contains powerful triple action Nano Silver, elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, and vitamin D3. These combined help supercharge your immune system along with the silverceutical technology. Safe and proven Nano Silver works alongside your body's own immune system to help you stay healthy and strong for everything that life throws at you. More information on all of the great products available at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.ca. If you want to find a retail location near you, they're scattered all across the country. Go to the retail locations tab right here, not there, right here on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. And if you want to become a distributor of these awesome products, maybe get a little side hustle going, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab. Again, that's CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Now, Canada Nano Silver is very proud sponsor of an event that's coming to Beausejour, Manitoba. We should say Winnipeg, because technically Beausejour is like 20 minutes away from the city. So, in essence, it's a bedroom community of the city of Winnipeg. Doesn't take long to get there from here, is what I'm saying. All right? And Beausejour, on June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, is going to be hosting the Canada Stronger Together Conference. And there's going to be big names from all across the country attending this and coming up with solution-based discussions and seminars to help us move forward together as a country and fight what we've been fighting now for, I guess, the past 100 years or so, but many of us have only just woken up in the past 3 or 4 years. So this is, again, coming up June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. There's more information at Manitoba Stronger Together, all one word, Manitoba. You can see right up here, Manitoba Stronger Together.ca. It's being hosted by Ken and Rosalie Drysdale. They have put their personal finances into bringing this event together. That includes renting the halls. That includes bringing some of the guests in. That includes everything. It's a lot. So what Kevin and Anna at Canada Nano Silver have decided to do is contribute, help out, and $2 from every product sold between now and June 21st at Canada Nano Silver will go to recoup some of the costs for this event, which can be excessive. So I'm not charging anything for my services. I'm going to be out there at this conference, the Stronger Together conference, the entire weekend. I'll be moderating panels. I'll be speaking to you guys. We're expecting people from all across the country. Who is going to be there? It's a call to the whole nation. We're right in the middle of the country. We're right in the middle. The longitudinal center of Canada is maybe 20 miles east of the city of Winnipeg. All access tickets, early bird price still on $239, regular price going to be $249, last minute $262. Now there's an event going on at the same time in Victoria, British Columbia. They are charging double, more than double for that event. They do have some very big names coming up, but it's not going to be interactive and solution-based like this is going to be. There's also one-day access tickets. 750 tickets remain. You can get your tickets at manitobastrongertogether.ca. Some of the people who are going to be there, or some of the organizations, include Vaccine Choice Canada, Manitoba Stronger Together, the Keystone Party is going to be there, Rebel News, the United Party of Canada, the National Citizens Inquiry, Stand United BC, the Canadian Democratic Defence Association, Lifestream Institute, Valor Legal Action Centre, and more yet to be named. We would love to see you at this event just over a month from now in Beausejour, Manitoba, just about 20 minutes northeast of Winnipeg, for the Canada Stronger Together Conference. Again, June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, manitobastrongertogether.ca. Hit the events tab and get your tickets. Excuse me. Excuse me. Or at least think about getting your tickets. I'm hearing myself twice. That's why I've been stumbling and stammering so long, because I'm talking to Peter. Good. How you doing? Are you with us yet? Have you figured this thing out? I know. Hang on one second. Let me bring you on here. Go ahead and say something. No, all we've got is a black screen with a white dot in the middle. It says your devices are not connected, Peter. Okay, let me ask you to do something. Just reboot the system. That's fine, man. Like, that's fine. Whatever. I'll leave the line open. You just reboot the system, and then you can go ahead and holler at me, interrupt me. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I know. I'm going to get to that story as we go through the night, but we'll be waiting for you to come on. All right. Cool. That's all right. Don't worry about it, man. That's cool. Peter MacIsaac has been delayed with technical difficulties, but he will be joining the show at some point, hopefully. All right. Let's while we're waiting. I'm sorry to laugh, but you know what? It is kind of a circus. While we're waiting, let's go say some hellos. If you're watching on Facebook tonight, or if you're watching on X, Kevin, Sean Buckley. Kevin saying Sean Buckley is coming. Serena Freedom Bear, Raven are going to be at the Canada Stronger Together event. Leighton Gray. We shouldn't really be talking about that just yet, Kev. But if you've let the cat out of the bag, what are we going to do now? So, yeah, we do have some fairly well-known people coming to the event. We also understand Sheila Gunn Reid from Rebel News is going to be there. But Sean Buckley, you know him from the National Citizens Inquiry, obviously Leighton Gray, the lawyer, Serena Freedom Bear, Raven, all the way from Newfoundland. Hello, Tammy, watching from just south of Roblin. Suzanne is watching tonight. Wish we had something like this in New Brunswick. You mean the Canada Stronger Together conference? Well, Suzanne, you know what? Maybe you will at some point. Maybe we'll try to make it a nationwide thing, one in every province. It would be very expensive to do that. It's one of the reasons that you're not seeing a lot of these events happening. It's because it's so expensive to do it. And when you finally get it together, you get all your expenses in line, and you realize how much you have to charge for a ticket for people to come. And they see that price. I'm like, I can't afford that. What are these guys, thieves? And it creates a problem for people. You know, not just for the fact that maybe some people can't afford it, but they resent the fact that you're charging X amount of dollars for that ticket when they feel like everything should be for free. And I'm sorry to say, but there's a lot of people in our community who think that what I do and what Ken does and what a lot of other people are doing, this independent media, going out, spending an entire day covering the Pat King trial, like Right Blend is doing right now. Patriot Smoothie, now known as Right Blend, is doing. There's all kinds of independent media people who work all day long, not just preparing their shows, but also lining up guests. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time. I spend probably 12 or 13 hours every single day putting this thing together, never mind what you see on the air, which is only 1 or 2 hours, depending on whether or not you're a member of my website or not. It takes a lot. And people out there for some reason, don't appreciate that. So this is one of the reasons you're starting to see a lot more people go, you know what, this is a whole lot of work just to get a whole lot of abuse. Having said that, we also know that there are some very good people out there who completely and totally understand the situation that we're in right now. And if we don't cough up the money is just going to be taken from us anyway. Remember last night I talked a lot about central bank digital currencies. Well, that's coming. That's coming, and it's coming a lot sooner than we think it is. The UK is getting set to roll it out right now. Canada, the central bank in Canada says, no, we're not doing that. That's a completely political decision. But you can bet they're going to be doing it. They're completely ready for it right now anyway. All kinds of countries. Japan is also very into this thing. Japan is one of the largest economies on earth. And they're getting set for a central bank digital currency. And this is the reason we get together and do these Stronger Together events, is to bring people together to come up with solutions. And one thing we have come up with, it's taken us long enough, thank you to Maggie Hope Braun for this, is tackling this problem at the local level because of the ICLEI initiative that's initiated by the United Nations 30 years ago, actually more than 30 years ago. They've got a 30-year head start on us. And we need to get this issue solved from the bottom up. So yeah, it's going to be great when Justin Trudeau is out, but Mark Carney is worse, and that is what the Celtic Canucks video I'm about to play for you is all about tonight. So you guys might turn your nose up at the price of some of these tickets, but I think it's well worth it going forward. Very well worth it. Hello, Randolph, watching tonight. Carolyn, Beausejour is more than 20 minutes from Winnipeg. No, it depends on what part of the city you live in. If you live in Transcona, it's 20 minutes away. Lynn is watching tonight. Yes, Ken and Rosalie, Manitoba Stronger Together, are hosting an amazing conference, very reasonably priced with great speakers. I just said that. Hello, Sharon. How you doing? She says she'll be there on Saturday. Frank is watching tonight in Huntsville, Ontario. Hello, Frank. Nice to see you here. Soshita is watching in Kingston, Ontario. I hope I said your name right. Edie, hello, is watching tonight. I spoke to Edie on the phone a couple of times yesterday. We're working something out. Hello, Dan and Tony watching in Calgary. Linda is watching from somewhere in Ontario. If you guys are watching on Facebook tonight, please like and share. Let's get this show out to as many people as we possibly can. The sharing of information is one of the keys to help us win moving forward. The more people that know what's going on in the world, the more people might stand up and do something about it. And you might be one of those people. You might be one of those people who has arrived late at the party, and that's okay. We don't hold that against you. You finally woke up. Congratulations. Welcome to the party, pal. Right now, let's work together to stop the globalists from taking us over. Apparently, they're breaking out the 15-minute cities too. I've seen a lot of posts in the last couple of days showing the 15-minute city modeling of the city of Edmonton. If you're watching on X tonight, don't forget it's a repost and a heart. Thank you very much. Over on Rumble, we go. Hello, Mouth of the South, and Tammy BB, and Cheryl Dawn, and Jennifer Jupiter, Amnesty, Esky Dog, the dude. The dude is watching tonight. Yeah, you guys, so go ahead and share this on Rumble as well. First of all, to work within the Rumble community of 100 million subscribers, give us a thumbs up. That will help get us back on the front page of Rumble, right next to the big names all across the Rumble platform. Then I need you to go ahead and share if you feel comfortable doing that. Hit the share button beneath the screen. That highlights the URL above the screen. And from there, you can go ahead and copy and paste it into your favorite social media location, a group, or an email. Let's get this out to as many people as we possibly can. As you guys know, this will be my final show of the week. I'm taking tomorrow and Saturday off, and then back on Sunday night for the all access folks on shadowdavis.com. Then we're back on social media for the next show for you guys on Monday night. But if you decide to become a member, an all access member at shadowdavis.com, we'll see you on Sunday night. All right, what do we got? Hang on just a minute. Peter? Oh, I know. No, 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 no. I don't think that's the problem. Did it reboot okay? It's updating. Oh, no. This might be a while then. So, what percentage are you at? Oh, no. This was this was probably the problem. Your computer needs to update. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, man. That could be a defragging problem too. Well, don't worry, man. Like we can wait for you. If it if it's not going to take the next hour for the computer to update, you can do it through, or maybe your iPad. You, you don't need an app. All you need is yeah. It's too bad that Peter's going to be going off his pad because he had a very nice setup on his computer. I saw it, guys. I saw it, and it looked great. You know. It is great. Right. How's it going with that iPad?
There we go, entering the studio. Do you wear headphones? Do you experience audio echo?
You're going to need earbuds.
This box is blowing now. You may have.
I'll see you when you come on.
And I did a double check, and then I went back in at quarter two, no issues.
I'll tell you guys something. Like because the viewers, there's 1,000 people watching this right now. Actually, more than that because of the website and all the other. So, you guys watching this right now, this is stuff that happens every now and again. You just have a problem. The reason for this was I had Peter on screen before the show started, before we started streaming, before we went live, but he couldn't hear me. I could hear him and I could see him. He could see me, but he could not hear me. So I said, "We'll just go out and come back in," like I say to other people this happens to, and it didn't work. So the last resort was to reboot the computer, and now his computer is updating. So we're gonna, yeah. And so now we're gonna be trying it off his iPad. Is it an iPad or just a regular tablet thing? Is the phone charged? So is it? Yeah.
We had another phone call, conference call.
Yeah.
Near one of our reporters. He was everything backed up in the U.S. Within an hour, they had hacked in and taken down 3 of his computers.
Hold a minute. Maybe I could bring you on the phone here. Let's see if I can do this. No, you know what? I'm not even going to dare try it right now. I'm not even going to dare try it. I might take myself completely off the air. How does it know it's not your fault? An error occurred, but don't worry, you didn't do it. Nope. Keep trying. Keep trying. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a video from Justin Trudeau while we're waiting. Justin Trudeau is in Winnipeg tonight for a Liberal fundraising dinner, and he's charging something like $1,700 or $1,800 a seat, if you can believe it. Like, you want to talk about something that's expensive that you get absolutely nothing out of? That is what it is. A Liberal fundraiser in Winnipeg tonight for almost $1,800 a seat, where he's going to talk about climate change. Now, this is Justin Trudeau today, and he's asked about Pierre Poilievre, I think. And again, he goes off on a diatribe. It's a minute and a half. Go ahead and watch this, you guys, while we wait for Peter to get his system all set up here.
You released a video this past week about your capital gains changes, but we have yet to see the legislation. Do you plan to make any changes, and will it be tabled next week?
We have announced very, very clearly that we believe that this country needs a little more fairness for every generation. We've seen far too many people who are among the wealthiest do extremely well through every crisis that we've hit, whether it's been inflation, whether it's been the pandemic, whether it's been the impacts of climate change, while middle-class Canadians and vulnerable Canadians struggle more and more. That's why we made the decision to ask the wealthiest, those who have capital, to pay a little bit more by raising the capital gains inclusion tax rate from 1/2 to 2/3. It'll come into effect on the 25th of June, and it means close to $20 billion more to invest in housing, to invest in things like a school food program, to invest in more places in childcare, to give every generation that opportunity to succeed. So yes, we are asking those who've done really well over the past few years to pay a little bit more, to make a little bit less in terms of the profits they're making off of their capital, off of the properties, off of the assets they own, because it's about fairness. So we continue to share the details on that, but we're going to make sure that everyone is paying their fair share and that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed.
It's interesting with this guy, don't you think? We're asking. You're not asking anything, Mr. Trudeau. You are making it law that people who have been saving their entire lives for retirement, you were telling them by making it law that they have to pay you more now, the capital gains tax, which they snuck into this budget, which still hasn't been voted on, by the way. Still not law yet. There's still nothing to oppose because it's not even on paper yet. Doesn't apply yet. He's trying to sell it to the country, and he can't. Pierre Poilievre actually thinks that Trudeau is going to back down on this, just like he's done so many other times before. Look at this. From the counter signal, Canada drops from 9th to 33rd on the quality of life index. How do you drop that many points? You drop 24 points on the quality of life index. And this is a G8 nation. Canada was a rich country. This is how we all grew up. Canada is a great place to be. This is why all the immigrants want to come here. And now all the immigrants have come here, with more coming. Maybe that's what's dropped our quality of life index. Because when you import the third world, you become the third world. Since Trudeau took office in 2015, Canada has fallen 24 places on the World Quality of Life Index, going from 9th to 33rd. Now, I don't generally believe this kind of stuff, right? But just for a laugh, let's continue on with it. The numbers come from Numbeo, the world's largest cost of living database, which sources data from nearly 800,000 contributors. The overall quality of life score is based on 8 key... Peter, I think Peter is going to be joining us in a couple of minutes. We'll get through this story here. The overall quality of life score is based on 8 key factors: purchasing power index, safety index, healthcare, blah, blah, blah. According to the data, in every single category, Canada is doing worse. In terms of purchasing power, Canadians have dropped from a score of 105.1, 9th, just behind Denmark, Australia, Sweden, to 83.3. That's 27th. For safety, Canada has dropped from 62.5 in 2015 to 54.8 in 2024. Healthcare, from 69.6 to 69.1. Cost of living, 81.8 to 68.4. Property, price to income ratio, 5.5 to 11, from 6th place to 34th place in terms of nationwide affordability. Even in terms of the pollution index, the carbon tax, which is the only score besides property price to income you'd want to see go down, Canada under Trudeau has managed to do worse, rising from 27.3 in 2015 to 30.2 in 2024. We went from 8th to 17th place there. In other words, by every metric used to determine quality of life, Canada is doing worse than before Trudeau took office in terms of worldwide rankings. And while every Canadian may not know these figures, they're surely feeling it. I know you are. I know I am. And it's being reflected in the polls, whether in terms of Trudeau's nosediving approval rating or in Canadians' use of food banks, which is going through the roof, by the way. I know Pierre Poilievre keeps talking about this Facebook group called Dumpster Divers. It tells you how to go about looking for food in dumpsters. And you go to the ones that are next to restaurants, apparently. I haven't read through the entire thing, but it's a sad thing that so many Canadians are doing it. Peter, can you hear me okay? I can't hear you. Now I can't hear you. Nope. Oh. You can hang on. I'm gonna hang the phone up here because we've been talking. So that's gone. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Test, test, test.
There you are.
There we are. Good God Almighty. We're back in the
Oh, thank you.
There we go, buddy boy. All right.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot
I
of
didn't
technical
think
difficulties.
I didn't think this was going to happen. Peter, it's been almost a year since you've been on this show. Welcome back. Thank you
Thanks
for
for-
coming back on.
Thanks for having me back. I swear to God, I've never seen this much technical problems at the last minute in a long time. So,
Oh.
you're just trying to keep me on the edge of my seat. Anybody, I have to apologize for everybody. We ran to a backup phone. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It's kind of like when you're fighting forest fires. Bottom line, you still got to get the fire out, and by God, we got the fire out.
So you are a retired forest technician, but that's not everything you did. You were law enforcement for almost 30 years, correct? Just give us a complete and total re-education of what you did. But some of us already know, so it doesn't need to be that detailed.
Okay, so I did 29 years inside Nova Scotia provincial government. I was a forest technologist with the Department of Natural Resources. Those duties included I fought forest fires for 29 years. I was a armed game warden for the bulk of my career, and I was also the wildlife specialist in our district. And when I retired, I had a film production company. I made hunt, fish TV shows all across Canada, and I've been an entrepreneur. And right now, I'm the president of the Independent Nova Scotia initiative, where we're trying to get 55 independents to run in our next provincial election. And we have the numbers and we have everything we need to actually accomplish that. So
Now,
that's a
I
quick
want to talk
background on
about that. I want to talk about that in just a second. But the way Peter came into our sphere of influence here is what happened last year around this time when remember the wildfires were raging out of control through Quebec and Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, all through the Maritimes. You guys made an offer, you and some other retired forestry technicians made an offer to the government of Nova Scotia, and they said no. We're not interested in any of your expertise or your help.
That's exactly what happened. So what did happen though, and I would like to, I don't know if we were influential in it or not, but Alberta actually set up a program so that they could actually access the services of the retired expert forest firefighters that they had. And I think out in Alberta now, they're actually using them as a coordinated team to help in all their firefighting efforts. Down here in Nova Scotia, they never returned phone calls to this date. And they set up something new down here called, I think it's called the Scotia Guard, where they're going to have 350 volunteers. The province bypassed every other volunteer agency, didn't consult with them, set up a new agency, and it's destined to be an absolute disaster because volunteer firefighters can only come out and fight for a couple of days and then they have to go back to their jobs. So, anyways, it's just been one big SS. I don't
So
want to swear
let me-
on your show.
Right. Let me ask you this. You have set up, it's not necessarily a political party as much as it is a grassroots movement. Am I right?
Correct. We are all we are is a teaching society. We're not a party, but what we do is we go into every community across the province, and we have town halls. And in those town halls, we explain to people the benefits of voting in an independent MLA in the next upcoming provincial election. We only have 55 seats down in Nova Scotia, and we have very particular set of numbers down here that nobody else has in Canada. We probably have the best opportunity to pull off what we're trying to do. And our goal is to get enough independents voted in the province to force the government into a minority position where they can't accomplish anything without the approval of the independents. And that in effect will give everybody in Nova Scotia complete control of the government again, because we've lost it for the last 30 years. They just run roughshod over us.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because there's been a lot of movements kind of like that in other provinces across the country. I know there's organizations in Alberta, Take Back Alberta, and there are now organizations in Saskatchewan. There's Unified Grassroots. Here in Manitoba, there's Manitoba Stronger Together. I'm not sure about Ontario because it's such a huge province, and the same goes for Quebec. But you guys have been able to organize many people all across Nova Scotia. How have you managed to get their attention?
Well, what ended up happening, a lot of small groups started when COVID, when we were all ravaged by the COVID nonsense. So what happened is a lot of small community groups formed, and people were affiliating with one another, like-minded people, and hundreds of those groups formed, and a lot of those groups didn't know about the existence of other groups because the press was telling you, no, you're alone and you have major consensus on these issues. Well, as it turns around, that wasn't the case at all. And so what we've been able to do, because we only have 1.1 million people in Nova Scotia, is that we've been able to connect a lot of these groups, and we're starting to grow a really major grassroots movement down here. We fully expect to have 55 candidates, independent candidates, in the next election here, which is scheduled for July 2025.
Can you give us a snapshot of Nova Scotia in terms of geography from one end to the other? And the reason I ask that is because out here in the prairies, these provinces are massive, right?
Yep.
I mean, it takes. I mean, if you were to drive from the southern tip of Manitoba you can't even drive to the most northern part of the province, but just to get up to Thompson would take 10 hours to drive that far from Thompson down to the southern border of Manitoba. Alberta is equally vast. British Columbia is the same. Saskatchewan is the same. Ontario, forget about it. But what about Nova Scotia? Can you get from one end of the province to the other in a few hours?
It's not so much in a few hours. If you were down the southern tip of Nova Scotia, you could be in central Nova Scotia in 3 hours in the Halifax area. And it's another 2 hours to Cape Breton Island. And Cape Breton Island, you could travel from the time you get on the island to the far end of the island in about 3 hours. So you could basically, from where we're located in central Nova Scotia, we can cover and go to anywhere in the province within where I'm at, maximum 4 to 5 hours.
Which is excellent because it's more compact and you've still
Right.
got the 1.1 million people. So that would make it a little bit easier to bring people together. Are you going out and doing town hall meetings in different towns?
Nonstop. That's basically what we've been doing since we initially got things going. And I received a phone call here 3 days ago. Cape Breton is hardcore. They've got 8 seats down there, and they want to run eight independents. They want an independent in all of them. So what's ended up happening down here, guys? 45% of the voters in Nova Scotia didn't show up for the last election. They didn't bother voting, and the reason being is rightly so. They believe that their vote no longer matters. And what people don't realize with independence is an independent can't be muzzled. They can table legislation without party approval, and their only duty is to be loyal to the people who voted them in. As a matter of fact, we got a phone call from Brian Peckford, and Brian Peckford laid out a game plan for us, and that can be highly effective in any province it's implemented in. A party won't allow anybody who gets voted in to disagree with the party. Once you're in the party, it's sit down, shut up, and do what you're told. With an independent, Brian Peckford come up with the idea of creating a performance contract where the community signs a contract with the independent, and they lay out timelines for planks, what they want accomplished, and a timeline to do it. And if you fail to do any of those things, make promises you don't keep, you're going to be in breach of contract. And one of the remedies is that you're going to be fired from your position. So,
Interesting, but you would still have to get these independents to try and work together somehow, right? So I guess there'd be a lot of deal making between these independent MLAs if they get voted in.
well, right now up in Nunavut in the Northwest Territories, they have all independents. So horse trading is going to have to go back, and politics is going to have to go back to the way it used to be. Everybody's going to have to give and take, and people are going to have to become good at horse trading. And that's the way it was intended to be, because what's important in southern Nova Scotia may not be the same issue that's in northern Nova Scotia, but as an independent, your only focus is on what the people in your community who voted you in want. And your job is to go to the legislature and fight on their behalf. And it right now, the way things are set up with party whips is whatever the leader wants, whether you support it or not, or your community supports it, you're going to either vote for what you're told to vote for, or you're getting thrown under the bus.
How have you managed to garner so much interest in this when so many other provinces are having such a problem getting people to even come out for a meeting?
So here's what's happened down here. Our cost of living is worse than it is in Saskatchewan right now. Uh, I mean, I don't go shopping much. I went into a grocery store the other day with my wife, and 3 nectarines was over $7. A slice of bologna in Nova Scotia now is over $1. Right? I mean, our costs of living down here are insane. And I think they may be the highest as far as taxation. We may have the highest taxation rate in Canada. So people are stretched to the max, and everybody is saying, okay, blue's not working, red's not working. Provincially, we have to do something. But the big issue is why we come across as so believable and credible. Is the premier only won by a couple of seats, and some of those seats he only won by 300 to 400 votes. So when you lay out those numbers to people, we're not trying to split votes. We're trying to motivate people who have given up on voting to show back out and say, guys, we don't blame you for not showing up to vote. You didn't have anyone to vote for. Now you get a chance to pick someone that you highly respect inside your own community, and you get to pick them rather than 3 or 4 people on a candidate selection committee. Go find someone you like who you can trust and his word means something. Get him to sign a contract, a performance contract, and then put him in. And all we need down here to give the province back to the people, if we can get 10 independents out of 55, we can take control of the government again. And then we can start.
You will have the swing vote, right? I mean, because that would make it a minority. Wow, that's great. So how would you go about picking? Like, would that be up to the community picking the candidate? Like, they just go knock on doors and say, "Hey, Bob, would you be interested in running as an independent for MLA?"
That's exactly what's happening. So here's what happens. A lot of people, the movers and shakers, turn out to these town halls. So for every person that shows out, they've got a circle of influence of their own. But when people get upset down this neck of the woods, like Cape Bretoners and these Nova Scotians down here, I mean, we're all descended from that Celtic warrior class. And when push comes to shove, we'll shove back, and people are upset down here, and the government's not listening. I mean, you guys don't know this, but a month ago, our premier passed legislation so that everybody in the legislature, doctor or not, can now look at your private medical information. And they jammed down people's throats. If we had another half a dozen independents, that legislation would have never got passed. So that's the game plan is, let's get enough independents in that you control the balance of power, same as Jagmeet Singh is doing right now. But it's not going to be run by party politics. It's going to be run on trusted people in the community, where a group of a couple of hundred people says, Jimmy, you're the guy we want. And what we're finding is, the first guy who puts up his hand and says, pick me, that's not the guy that the community wants. In almost every case, it's someone they have to talk into doing it, who will actually do it for the right reason and is only interested in doing it for a 4-year term and then getting out. As a matter of fact, a lot of independents are saying they'd like to see term limits. They'd like to see recall. There's a bunch of things they'd like to see. And all we do when we go into a community is we sell hope. We go in and, we only do a short presentation, about a 45-minute presentation, and then we take questions from an audience. And you want to talk about an engaged community down here in Nova Scotia, because people realize there is no fix in party politics. Our slogan down here is the party's over. The party system's broken. It doesn't work like it should work. And
that's great.
And here's the other thing that we're looking at, Shadow, is right now, either we fix it in this election, both federally and provincially, or we're going to lose this country.
Let me ask you, I mean, you're hoping to get 55 independent candidates to run in this election, right?
Yep.
What if all of these independents actually win enough seats to form a government? Let's say you get 30 seats.
Well,
how would you manage that?
Well, actually, we've already discussed that with a lawyer, and we do have a plan, because if you had enough seats, we could form a coalition, not a party, but a coalition that would be able to go to the lieutenant governor and request a change in politics. And if you had the people and you had the will of the people, the lieutenant governor at that time would be forced to find some form of legal recourse, which we already have designed, where they would have to make some form of accommodation. But that's not our goal. Our goal is just to get enough in to be able to tie the hands of the government and then start tabling legislation that, if they don't agree with, you're in a position where you can have a non-confidence vote, crash the government, and then let them go back to an election saying, look, we don't want recall. We don't want to be accountable. We want to keep our pensions after 2 years. We're not interested in recall. We're not interested in doing what the voter wants us to do. Most people aren't aware, in the late 90s, there was a legal case. It was called the, what's the name of that? There was a legal case, the Little Child case, actually. If anybody wants to look it up, And Canadian courts deemed that no politician once elected is responsible to the voter. You can't sue them. You can't do anything to them. Once they're elected, they can do whatever they please for the next 4 years. So when Brian Peckford said you're going to need that performance contract in place, that's the key that's been missing in holding politicians accountable. The problem is no party will allow any of their candidates to sign such an agreement because they don't want them. They want them following the party lines and not doing what the voters want. So we think we have a solution. And when I explain this to people, when we go in and do these meetings, you got people that are sitting back with crossed arms and crossed legs, and at the end of it, they're on to the end of their seat going, "This can actually work."
What kind? I want to get back to, because it sounds like you guys have got a lot of momentum on your side.
Big
I
time.
mean, how many people are you getting out for these meetings when you go out? Like, probably, I'm going to say, and this is just a guess, but I'm going to say that mostly rural areas are really supportive of what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of rural areas. Other than Halifax and Sydney, we only have the two cities in our
Right.
province. So we've got Halifax, so all the rural communities. Here's what happens. We start off in most cases with a small house meeting. We'll get together with a group, 10, 12 people. Then that blows up to 25, 30. Then your next meeting is 50. Then the next meeting is 100 to 150. And then you're shooting for meetings with 250 to 300. And out of those groups, what you'll find is we did one meeting in one area, and we got three candidates come out of that one meeting down in central Nova Scotia in the premier's backyard. And one of those people is going to run as an independent against the premier. And we also have a person now who's going to run as an independent against the leader of the Liberal Party.
So what you've got then is the possibility. So I want to get back to, let's say, winning 30 seats out of 55, right?
Maybe.
You got all of these independents. Like, what would the solution look like? I mean, at that time, would all of these independents have to get together and say, all right, we're going to be a party, the independent party, let's call ourselves,
Well,
and then formalize that and then pick a leader out of that to become the premier?
No.
Or would the premier be from another party, like the second party or something, but you have the power to tell him or her what to do?
That's the strategy for now. The strategy right now is to do exactly what you said there in stage two. You control the balance of power. Not a single thing can get done without approval of the independents. Now, the independents are going to be held to account by their voters with that performance contract. And if enough of them want to table legislation, they can force recall on all of the other sitting party members, because no party's going to vote for effective recall. Nobody wants to vote to fire themselves, right?
Yeah. Have you seen a lot of jaded people, Peter? I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but like, have people been like, do they come out and go, "This is never gonna work. Come on, you guys"? Is there any of that, or are people all very enthusiastic?
Like I said, it's all crossed legs and cross arm, but everybody's looking for a solution because people are so upset. People have to look back what happened when Jack Layton almost won an election, because people were so tired with the lies from the mainstream parties that they were willing to take a chance. Well, now they're not taking a chance on someone that a small selection committee picked because they look good, smell good, and knew how to shake hands and tell lies that were believable. Now everybody's looking for somebody in the community that they can all rally behind out of these small communities and say, "We're going to put you in, and we want you to actually represent us." Right? We're tired of driving through potholes. We're tired of food that not being able to afford groceries. The price of gas down here I don't know what it is where you guys are, but I filled up my Honda CRV today, and $100. I shouldn't say filled it up. $100 couldn't fill my CRV when 4 years ago down here it was costing me $30 with high test. It's
So what is
insane.
it, like 170 a liter, somewhere in
Uh,
there?
I think today I paid 193.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Well,
That's great. You know, if you guys are successful with this could be something that you could see it across the entire country, not just provincially, but even federally, maybe.
so there's a big federal movement underway now too. But the problem is they're confronted with a time scale that may not allow them to accomplish it. But people have to realize, guys, if you had as many independents as the NDP had, we could have got rid of Trudeau 2 weeks after he got in with his with minority government. Everything that's happened in the last couple of years was done because fractured party politics, where people have to vote the party line. There's got to be a lot of people in the NDP who don't support Jagmeet Singh, but party politics force you to stick together, and your loyalty is to the party, not to the voters. And people are just fed up with this. And so basically, This is a grassroots movement whose time has come, and we have the right demographic, the right amount of people who gave up on voting. That's who we're after, and we can actually make a change. We don't want to completely change, you know. We don't want to have 55 out of 55 seats, but if we get them, then I guess we have a new problem to deal with, don't we?
I
It'd be a good
suppose you do.
problem.
Now you've got a premier who claims he's a conservative, but he's not. You point him out as almost like a globalist, right? Like it's Tim Houston of the Progressive Conservative Party, but he's anything but conservative.
He actually went out of his way in the last federal election to completely separate himself from the federal Conservative Party. He put out newspaper articles saying, please don't mix us up with the federal Conservatives. He's more liberal than a liberal. And you got to remember, he was involved in something called the Paradise Papers, and he has 8 years unaccounted for down in the Bahamas, where his specialty as an accountant was making sure people paid as little tax as possible. And a lot of those companies they dealt with were run by Vanguard and BlackRock.
Yeah.
So I can't definitively say that Tim is controlled by Vanguard and BlackRock, but all the arrows are pointing in that general direction, and he's never come out and said he wasn't.
So how are obviously the two main parties in Nova Scotia have heard about what you guys are doing?
Big time.
And has there been any contact? Has there been any reach out? Have they made any phone calls? Have you spoken to any of them?
Well, there's a new party started up, and behind the scenes, as soon as they find out we have someone's interested in a running, they start getting phone calls, say, look, why don't you come play with the big boys and we'll offer you some sweet deal, ministry or some kind of a better deal. What they don't understand is everybody that's showing up to these meetings is so sick of this down here because, down in Nova Scotia, buddy, back in the 90s, at your own kitchen table, if you said you were going to vote conservative in a liberal family, you'd be eaten out in the woodshed, right? They'd disown you, right? So what we're not getting is we're really not getting any pushback from any of the people at the meetings. As a matter of fact, the support for what we're doing is absolutely stunningly overwhelming.
But what about the parties themselves? Are they trying to push back on you guys, or have they come out and publicly said, you can't support this? This is just a bunch of wackadoos who are out there trying to cause problems. Have they tried to paint you as right-wing extremists, knuckle draggers, bigots, anything like that?
Not a peep. Basically, all the intel that I have behind the scenes is they're terrified that this is going to work. And they continue to dig a deeper and deeper hole for themselves. The final straw, like I said, was being able to access what they call a custodian, anyone they want to give information to. And my understanding is Justin Trudeau gave the province over $1 billion to make sure when COVID was going on that if Tim Houston could give access to all our medical data, he could get access to it. He now can legally share that with the feds. So, this is a rural community down here with firearms. People don't understand when the government, like the Tim Houstons of the world and unqualified politicians can look at all your medical history. People don't need to understand that if you ever talk to a doctor about depression, there's going to be Mounties show up at your door and want to take your firearms.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. I remember dating a girl, I'm going to say 15 years ago. She had broken up with a guy 18 months previously, and she got a call because he started dating somebody new, I think. So she got a call 18 months after breaking up with this guy asking if he was mentally stable, because I think he wanted to buy a new gun or something. And she got a phone call. And I thought,
that's
what?
going to happen. So when the feds get a hold of all your medical data, first of all, it's probably going to end up in the hands of the WHO here within the next week. Canada's pushing for, they want to sign that deal with the WHO that's going to pass off in the event of any kind of a health emergency, complete control of the WHO. Well, the federal Liberals are pushing hard to add climate change to that agenda, where they'll be able to suspend every charter right that we have in Canada under the guise of a climate emergency designated by the WHO, the World Health Organization, and we're about 7 days away from having Canada sign on to that agreement. People have no idea how catastrophic that's going to be.
That is all bureaucrats as well too. We have done several shows on that, and it's quite terrifying. But at the same time, if you have an enlightened politician in power, independent or not, that person can say, wait a minute, what is this? I think Leslyn Lewis has tried at the federal level to let
right.
people know what's going on. So when we talk about party politics, yeah, we can say that they're all one tight-knit group and the party whip is going to tell them what to say and do. But we've seen instances of, at least federally, the Conservatives kind of breaking away from the party line. Not all the time. I'm not going to say that they do it all the time, but they do it some of the time, which is a good thing. Have you had any direct threats on your safety?
I haven't had phone calls directed at me, but let me put it to you this way, just so that your audience knows. I've never suffered from any type of depression, and if I show up dead for any reason, there's 100% guarantee I didn't commit suicide. That's all I'm going to say. I don't
How's
want
the
to end up
forest?
like I don't want to end up like those guys on those whistleblowers at Boeing.
How's the forest fire situation out there this year? Are you getting a lot of wildfires? Is there enough to volunteer for?
Well, here's the point. When I was working at Natural Resources, it wasn't called wildfire season. It was called fire season. Wildfire is something they added on recently, right? Yeah. And last year, the biggest fire that we had down here, charges finally got laid. The RCMP wouldn't lay charges, but the Department of Natural Resources actually laid charges. And it turns out that our largest fire in our history was arson. And my understanding, when I look across the numbers from coast to coast Canada, the amount of arson fires are staggering. It's got nothing to do with climate change. I mean, that whole narrative is garbage, just absolute nonsense. I'm watching the press every day now say, they never covered forest fires before. And all of a sudden,
Peter, you spent 30 years almost as a conservation officer, and we talked, I think, a little bit about this last year. Have you seen any changes at all? I mean, I don't believe in that narrative myself. I do believe that the climate changes, but I don't think it has anything to do with us. I think it's just a natural phenomenon that's been happening for millions and millions of years. Is there anything different now than there was when you first started that job?
The biggest difference that it's now is we don't have the level of equipment that we had back when I was doing it. All across Canada, every provincial government for about the last 10 years started cutting back on their fire budgets, cutting back on equipment. And right now, everybody's trying to gear back up. You got to remember, for the last 10 years, they've been banging the climate change drum. And at the same time, systematically, they've been reducing our forest firefighting capabilities. And then they're wondering, well, okay, what happened? Like out in Alberta, for example, they got rid of their hell attack repel units. Those guys were the best of the best. Those were the guys that kept fires to 3 to 4 acres instead of 30,000 acres. And they laid off the bulk of them there a couple of years ago under, I think it was an NDP government. It might have been a conservative government, but whoever did it, it was short-sighted and was foolish. And so somebody asked me the other day, can you go back and put a finger on where all these problems started? And I can tell you straight up, a lot of this started when DEI started, like diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, when they stopped hiring people based on how good they were at their job.
Yeah.
Meritocracy went out the window. And now across all levels of government and all levels of any government institution, you have people that shouldn't be there making life-altering decisions, and they're really not qualified to be shaking hands and greeting you at Walmart. And some of these people are senior directors. It's insanity.
Let me ask you, there's a process to keeping forests in shape so that they're not going to get fires that spread, like the clearing underbrush, just cutting different things away, right? I mean, making sure that if a fire does start, it's not going to go for 300 acres. And I understand places like California and even some places in Canada have just stopped doing that or severely cut back on forest maintenance. Am I right?
Basically down here, that's 100% true in Nova Scotia. We had a major hurricane go through 2 years ago. And I can tell you right now, excuse me, if we get a major fire in any of that, you're not going to be able to fight it at all. You'll never get equipment through. We had massive damage, and the amount of cleanup that happened afterwards is only fractional. And the government, they've got bigger fish to fry, right? They've got sidewalks that they need to pay $2,500 to paint. They don't have time to be dealing with some of these other issues.
Yeah, they've got to make sure they get those all-sex, gender-neutral bathrooms in public places. That's the priority.
it's so everything's basically ass backwards. But that comes from you've got a series of people now based over the last 10 to 20 years that are in positions they should never be in. So that's crisis proportions all across the country, and that's just not government. That's in every boardroom across Canada too. That's why why we find ourselves in the mess we're in. I mean, if you're hiring people based on anything other than meritocracy, everything that they touch will collapse. So I'm seeing that with forest firefighting. I'm seeing it down here in Nova Scotia. I see decisions made on a daily basis, and the problem is no politician can be held accountable. For once they're in for 4 years, they can do whatever they want. And no matter how bad they screw it up, you're stuck with them for 4 years. That's why that little contract idea that Brian Peckford come up with, to me, is the key to hand power back to the people in Canada, not just at provincial and federal, but also municipal.
Oh, especially municipal with
Right.
those school trustees and those councillors and mayors and reeves. I mean, they're that's pretty much a Marxist minor league, right? That's where they go to train them to become provincial MLAs and even MPs federally. Have you reached out to other people in other provinces with this idea? And if so, what kind of response have you gotten?
So BC has an independent BC initiative. And every province that we've talked to so far, even into Quebec, people were interested. But here's the thing: nobody has the same demographic and the numbers to deal with that we have. Because we've only got that 1.1 million and 45% didn't vote, and we have a big, a large number of rural areas that we can tap into, we have a very legitimate chance to accomplish what we're setting out to do. Other provinces, they're running into they don't have enough time to prepare for the next election, or they have to deal with the press and they can't get any mainstream coverage. We're not getting any mainstream coverage. We're small enough with groups behind the scene down here that everything is word of mouth and digital, Facebook, Twitter, and word of mouth. And as a matter of fact, good old fashioned putting up a poster somewhere still works down in Nova Scotia.
Have you got representatives in every community down there now, like people who are working to get the word out?
Not in every community. We've got a few that we still got left to tap into, but I would say probably right now we've covered at least 75% of the 75% of the province.
As you say word of mouth, and I go, all right, that's great, because that's probably, and I think even now, today, even with social media, I think word of mouth is the best way to get a message out there. People are talking about this. They actually know what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and the other big thing is what happened with COVID down here is that people basically have lost, not everybody, but I'd say probably 70% of Nova Scotians have given up on mainstream media. I mean, it's just one lie after the next. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to plug myself here because I just did a book and it's called The Redneck Conservative, and I cover a bunch of this stuff in there. And I tell you why I got it out now. I'm worried about Bill C-63. A lot of what I say in that book that's available on Amazon, if Bill 63 comes out, they're probably going to shut down that book. And I wouldn't be surprised if they try to put me in jail. So I tried to get that message out. And in the last chapter of that book, we go over our plan here for Nova Scotia. But that's a blueprint that should be able to be used in any province, coast to coast. And it's just a matter of getting the right people trying to get things coordinated. I know there's a nationwide group right now that are trying to coordinate at a federal level. But they have a huge, I mean, for us,
that's a big job. Yeah,
well, that's a big job, but we don't have it just because of the size of the province and the numbers that we're dealing with. So for us down here, it's do or die. We're going to make this work.
Have you considered coming out to Manitoba for the Stronger Together conference next month? I'm not sure. Maybe you've been in contact with Ken Drysdale from the NCI. He's the one putting it on. And we're trying to bring all of these ideas together in the center of the country here. Having you here would be fantastic.
I've been invited by a couple of different people. Ken, we were on our way to do a town hall, and I got a call from Ken here about 2 weeks ago. And the issue being is we're a nonprofit, and we haven't been we haven't made an attempt to raise any money. Everything we're doing, there's myself and two other buddies of mine that are highly respected engineers. They see the world different than me. That's why I paired up with them. And we're paying out of our pocket for everything that we do. So for us to take time and run out there right now, that's a fair chunk of change for us to run out and do that. I'd rather spend my time down here and see if we can't get another one or two candidates during that same time period at a town hall. I can't afford to take time. As much as I'd love to go out, we're just not going to be able to do it.
You know, it might be an idea even just to get you via Zoom link or something, just to give us
That's not a bad
spiel.
idea.
Yeah, it is a good idea because it's like the spiel that you have to give would be very helpful. And what this conference is all about is it's a solution-based conference, right? We're going to talk about why the problems exist, how we got to where we are, and how we can get out of them. And I think what you've come up with is absolutely brilliant, and you've been working hard at getting people on board, and so far so good, right? I mean, the election that you guys are having is later on this year, isn't it?
Actually, we were worried that he might call it as early as July this year. Legally, we have to go to an election by mid-July 2025. But because, well, what ended up happening, his poll number started to tank after we pulled that stunt with people's private medical information. So now if he goes to an election, we have enough traction. I mean, I'd be happy if he went to an election in the next 2 months because we'd be able to win. The only setback that we have is they changed legislation in Nova Scotia in 2021 that requires there's over 4,000 CPAs in Nova Scotia, and there's only 154 of them that are qualified to do audits. So they changed the legislation in 2021 after we got our first independent candidate down here. That is an independent or any MLA, you can't. They won't accept your papers to run until you have a qualified CPA who's on a government list to do audits. Well, we had an opportunity to run a guy in a by-election here on short notice, and we called over 100 accountants, and they called an election 5 days, I think, before the end of April, when you couldn't get an accountant to return a phone call from you, and we were unable to get what he needed in the form of a CPA accredited to do audits. So right now, our board is we're working on a court challenge because it's a Section 3 charter violation that prohibits a person's ability to be able to run in an election. And so we have to get that resolved, but we're working on that. Hope to have that accomplished here in the next 30 to 60 days. It'll be an emergency
Is your book out?
order.
Peter, is your book out yet? It's available?
There it is right there. It's called The
Redneck Conservative.
It says,
how do we...
It says how conservatives are made, how Candace Owens, Peter MacIsaac, and Thomas Sowell became conservatives.
And how do we get our hands on it?
That one, you can get a digital copy over at Amazon, or you can get a copy of the book. And it says on the back, and people need to hear this, it said, how will you be remembered? Our ultimate battle today is for freedom of speech and a right to bear arms. The right to bear arms will long-term ensure a right to free speech. In Canada today and mostly worldwide, because we don't have that right to bear arms, our freedom of speech is being stolen from us on a daily basis. An informed public is the enemy of tyranny. We all have a choice to make, more freedom or less freedom, because in the end, that is all there is. You, for now at least, still get to decide. The battle will not be won by those without conservative and redneck frames of mind. This battle will not be won by the timid or the meek. It is all on the line. What legacy will you leave behind? How will your grandchildren remember you? And it's just that serious. So, you know what? I started that book 6 years ago, and then I kind of dropped it through COVID, and then I took it back up again, and I couldn't get it finished to it. And then when Bill C-63 got tabled, I went, I'm not going to be able to put this thing in print if that legislation goes through. So I had to, rather than just talk about all the problems and all the things that I had gone through that turned me into, I guess I'm a conservative who's no longer involved with a party because I believe party politics is broken. But I was able to finish the book off on that last chapter with a full solution that can be applied, not just here in Canada, any parliamentary system, or even a federal republic. Any party system can take this and apply it and make it work.
It's a plan.
It's the plan. And if you want to know more, you can find that over on Amazon.
All right, man. Thank you, Peter, for coming on tonight. I'm sorry about all the problems we had getting you on, the technical difficulties, but I'm glad you finally made it, man. You're always good to have on. Thank you, and we'll have you back on again. And by the way, fantastic job doing what you're doing out there in Nova Scotia. We really respect that, and hopefully it spreads through the rest of the country. Thank you.
Yeah, if you get me back sometime in a couple of months, I'll give you more of an update. And just remember, guys, party politics is broken, and our slogan is, the party's over.
All right, Peter, thank you. There is Peter MacIsaac. The party's over. I like it. Now, you might be wondering, why is Shadow still on social media? It's past 9 o'clock Central. I feel bad that we didn't get Peter on till I think it was about 8:30 before we finally got all of those technical difficulties straightened away. So I'm going to stay on until 9:30 tonight, so another 17 minutes. And there's a couple of things I wanted to get on the social media part of the show tonight, things I've already gotten on the extension on shadowdavis.com. And we will be switching to that at 9:30 Central. There's still a lot of things I want to cover back there. But one thing especially that I wanted to bring to your attention is this story right here, which is great news. It's absolutely fantastic news. So this has been a great news show so far. Great news show, not great news show. The CRTC will not implement the Online Streaming Act until late next year. So even though it's been passed and it's a law, it's still not in effect because they don't know how to implement it. So they're taking their time to make sure they do it properly. And when we're talking about late 2025, what does that mean? That means between now and then, an election will have happened. And that means we'll have a new federal government. And that means the new prime minister, probably Pierre Poilievre, will just say, we're not doing this at all anyhow. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least if the CRTC is doing nothing in preparation for getting this bill ready to go. Because they move at a snail's pace anyway. The CRTC will delay implementing the Online Streaming Act until late next year. However, the Commission plans to continue consultations into 2026. It might not even get implemented in 2026, if at all, if ever. It won't. It can't. This is fantastic news. The Online Streaming Act, known as Bill C-11 before it became law, aims to make online platforms like Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Spotify promote Canadian TV, film, and or music content, as well as help fund the production of said content. That's not all it does. We know this. The CRTC now plans to implement the new regulatory framework starting in late 2025, according to the Globe and Mail. At that time, the Commission will also finalize how much online platforms will need to pay to support Canadian and Indigenous content. It's going to be nothing at all. So Facebook, this is a message now from me personally to Mark Zuckerberg. We all know who Mark Zuckerberg is. He is the CEO of Meta, the CEO of Facebook and Instagram. The one who has decided that they will not allow Canadian news to flow freely on their platforms in Canada because of the Online Streaming Act, which is not in place yet, even though it's law. It's not in place. It's not being enforced. They're not doing anything with it. Mr. Zuckerberg, I implore you now to allow Canadians to go ahead and post news content on their pages once more. Because by the time our regulatory body ever gets around to finally making sure that this thing works, we're going to have a new government, a new prime minister who is opposed to this law and will scrap it anyway. So why wait? Start now. Let's get it over with. Let's bring freedom of speech back to a free and democratic society, or what's supposed to be a free and democratic society. This is going to be the last thing. Wait a minute. 1 second. Oh, yeah. We've done that one. This is a great piece from former Lieutenant General in the Canadian military, so we're going to get to that too. So I've been telling you about the Celtic Canuck, and I'm not sure if you guys have gone to follow her on YouTube yet. That's where her show exists. I haven't been able to find. She's on X, but she doesn't put her stuff on X. At least I don't think she does. Maybe links to YouTube. But ultimately, her platform, her show is on YouTube, sadly. Hopefully she branches out at some point soon. But she did a fantastic piece yesterday, maybe it was released the day before, it doesn't matter, about Trudeau's successor. We know that even though Trudeau publicly says, I'm going to fight in the next election, I'm going to campaign, there is incredible pressure from within the party for him to step down. And what he doesn't want, you would have to think, even an egomaniac, a sociopath like Justin Trudeau, you would have to think that he doesn't want the humiliation and the embarrassment of being called out by members of his own party for staying on, being called selfish by members of his own party. And you can bet they will. At some point, they're going to start showing cracks, especially if their numbers keep going down and down and down the way they are. The latest polling shows the Conservative Party at 44%, with the Trudeau Liberals at 24%. That's as high as the Conservatives have ever been, that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and almost as low as the Liberals have ever been. So will Trudeau stay on? My money is on Trudeau staying on. But if he doesn't, who's going to take over? Chrystia Freeland? Probably not. The Liberals know that people despise her almost as much as Justin Trudeau. And who else in the party is ready to fill those shoes? Nobody. But somebody outside of the party is ready. And that is former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney. And that's what this episode of the Celtic Canuck is all about. It's 8 minutes, 24 seconds, and it's absolutely awesome. Let's watch it.
Many in Ottawa have started to ask, is there anyone who could replace the Prime Minister and regain the support for the industry? Probably the toilet brush is a toothbrush. Next election. And while Trudeau really is renowned in his own country, the problem doesn't end with him. He's just the latest in a long line of mascots who get switched out while the team itself never really changes. Whatever angle will keep them in power is the angle they will work. And while Harper was in there, the contrast was a young, dynamic, fresh face. Idealistic and enthusiastic. So that's what this is. We have a real plan. We're taking actions and carbon taxes on the Canadian population. What's the what they know that knowledge to me is that 80 about economy has already been a product on carbon. Neglecting to mention the fact that he is that he may actually be the reason trustees have instructions back. Striking by wistful optimism and hair and eyelashes to look too deeply. And if they had, they would have found the same romantic Trudeau today as it did then. A mile wide, but not even an inch deep. But the country figured it out eventually, and here we are. Well, let's take a look at some of the results right now. Beginning with might be a good replacement for the Prime Minister, preferred replacement as reported here before. So now they have to play it different. Bennington were greatly blasted and I'm worse affected. I'm still in my home from my childhood. And right here, right now, is where we're drawing. Right here, right now, is where finance gets like this. Mark Carney is one of the most prominent global voices following some project action around the world. The government of the Bank of Canada, dealing with businesses, the U.S. special operate on climate action, the financing, and the civic feelings. A mature remote time with the capacity for solar incineration. A good, reliable, steady hand to steal the ship and a respected presence on the world stage. In essence, a success in all the areas where Trudeau is filled. Ready to step in with the attitude of Daddy's home and he is going to get punchy over. And being as the bulk of the younger generation have limited experience of a father figure, they will probably buy it. So get ready for that pitch because that is the package you're out to be advertised, despite the fact that this one may shape up to be even worse than Trudeau established. He loves the carbon tax. The carbon tax is, the cost is everything. Be your fuels, heating, filters, expenses, where Carney loves that. My opinion? Because, ultimately this is all just my opinion. I am halfway into Mark Carney's urban findings. Don't even imagine for all. And as if the title isn't a big blaring red flag of its own for anyone not interested in the globalist utopia they seem to envision while defending us and the how, there were more surprises. Before I even had time to get bored, he had already talked about the importance of keeping up with the fourth industrial revolution, fairness across all generations, and building back better. So we all know where this is going. It leads to a globalism pocket digging, couched with nonsensical language meant to describe our demise was a blessing. Same agenda, different. And though I am as eager as anyone to get Trudeau out, but he ends office, I'm not sure it is right. This one is even worse.
I know this from my time in the UK, where for years the rallying cry of Brexiters was broken Britain. And their solution to take back control was actually code for here and your future. Unveiling his philosophy, his belief, his through liberal insiders. He's not actually talking to Canadians. He's talking to the liberal donor base, the liberal activist base, the little club of elites in Canada who want to run your life for you.
And that daddy's name torture for strong, steady hands ready to get this ship to shore is about as believable as Trudeau being an idealistic, dynamic leader.
Oh my God, you guys have not heard this. Oh, well, that's terrible. I got to go all the way back to the beginning and start again. I'm so sorry. This has not been my night. This is with technical difficulties. This has not been my night. Eventually, I will get a producer to come and run this show, the technical aspects of this show. And all I will have to do is just the show itself without operating all of the different little levers and buttons. But this is the first time I've done this in a while. So give me some credit for that. High five. All right. So let's start again from the beginning. It's a great episode. I can watch it again. I mean, I've been hearing it. Sorry about your luck if you haven't, but here we go again.
Well, there's no Liberal leadership race quite yet, but with the party under Justin Trudeau trailing badly in the polls, many in Ottawa have started to ask, is there anyone who could replace the Prime Minister and regain public support for the Liberals?
At this point, most Canadians would rather use their toilet brush as a toothbrush than vote Liberal in the next election. And while Trudeau really is reviled in his own country, the problem doesn't end with him. He is just the latest in a long line of mascots that gets switched out while the team itself never really changes. Whatever angle will keep them in power is the angle they will work. And while Harper was in there, the contrast was a young, dynamic, fresh face, idealistic and enthusiastic. So that's what they sold us.
We have a real plan. We're taking actions. And by the way, we're doing that without imposing carbon taxes on the Canadian population.
Monsieur Harper,
Mr. Harper, what you're not acknowledging is that 86% of our economy has already set a price on carbon.
Neglecting to mention the fact that he is so inept, he may actually be the reason toothpaste has instructions on the back. But everyone was too distracted by youthful optimism and hair and eyelashes to look too deeply. And if they had, they would have found the same remains of Trudeau today as it did then, a mile wide, but not even an inch deep. But the country figured it out eventually, and here we are.
Well, let's take a look at some of the results right now, beginning with who might be a good replacement for the Prime Minister, preferred replacement, as you put it in your poll.
So now they have to play a different hand.
Greta Thunberg rightly blasted everyone, words to the effect of, you've stolen my dreams and my childhood. And right here, right now, is where we draw the line. Right here, right now, is where finance draws the line.
Mark Carney is one of the most prominent global voices calling for climate action around the world. The former governor of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England is also the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance.
The voice of experience. A mature, worldly type, with the capacity for sober consideration, a good, reliable, steady hand to steer the ship, and a respected presence on the world stage. In essence, a success in all the areas where Trudeau has failed. Ready to step in with the attitude of Daddy's home and he is going to get the house in order. Good old, steady, reliable dad. And being as the bulk of the younger generation have limited experience of a father figure, they will probably buy it. So get ready for that pitch, because that is the package about to be advertised, despite the fact that this one may shape up to be even worse than Trudeau, if that's possible.
You see, he loves the carbon tax that has driven up the cost of everything, made your fuel, home heating, and groceries more expensive. Mark Carney loves that.
My opinion? Because, ultimately this is all just my opinion. I am halfway into Mark Carney's book, Values, Building a Better World for All. And as if the title isn't a big glaring red flag of its own for anyone not interested in the globalist utopia they seem to envision while descending us into hell, there were no surprises. Before I even had time to get bored, he had already talked about the importance of keeping up with the Fourth Industrial Revolution, fairness across all generations, and building back better. So we all know where this is going. It reads like a globalist puppet playbook, couched with nonsensical language meant to describe our demise as a blessing. Same agenda, different spokesman. And while I am as eager as anyone to get Trudeau out of the PM's office, Andrew Scheer is right. This one is even worse.
I know this from my time in the UK, where for years the rallying cry of Brexiters was Broken Britain.
Wait a minute, just a second. Hold it. I only just noticed this now. Did you hear a slight English accent in Carney's voice there? Did you hear that? Let's go back.
I know this from my time in the UK.
From my time in the UK. Sound like that to you? He did spend a significant amount of time over there. What if he becomes the prime minister? Because he would become the prime minister without an election if the Liberals decide to make him the leader. A Canadian prime minister with an English accent. I don't think I could deal with that.
Where for years the rallying cry of Brexiters was Broken Britain. And their solution to take back control was actually code for tear down your future.
Mark Carbon Tax Carney has been out on the elitist speaking circuit. He's been unveiling his philosophies and his beliefs and his approach to government, but only to a select group of Liberal insiders. He's not actually talking to Canadians. He's talking to the Liberal donor base, the Liberal activist base, the little club of elites in Canada who want to run your life for you.
And that daddy's home approach of the strong, steady hand ready to guide this ship to shore is about as believable as Trudeau being a young, idealistic, dynamic leader who will unite us all and finally bring some transparency and honesty to government. And we all know how that worked out. But at this point, the Conservatives seem certain that Mark Carney is the shiny new thing on the Liberal side, and have already monikered him Carbon Tax Carney.
The incoming leader of the Liberal Party has just given a speech and given advice to his soon-to-be predecessor. He said that he agrees, this is Mark Carney, says he agrees that there should be a carbon tax conference where the premiers can come together and share their concerns about the Prime Minister raising the cost of living and breaking the back of Canadians. Will the Prime Minister won't listen to me. He won't listen to the Liberal Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. Will he at least listen to his successor and meet the premiers on the carbon tax?
And here's the scary thing about Mark Carney. You see, as he attacks the Canadian men and women who work in our country's natural resource sector, he is actually the chair of Brookfield Asset Management. Now, what does Brookfield Asset Management do? They invest in oil and gas projects. The only trouble is, not here in Canada. Brookfield is part of a consortium of financial institutions that have taken a 49% stake in the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company's gas infrastructure.
Andrew Scheer is out with the preemptive strikes, and X is already flooded with snapshots and sound bites, which is what politics is all about. Snapshots and sound bites leaving the right or wrong impressions. This is your replacement to Trudeau. More dangerous than Trudeau in one very important way, because this one may actually have more than two brain cells to rub together. He comes pre-connected to all the right people to legislate and orchestrate our demise, and has already shown more loyalty to the globalist agenda, which he has actively been serving for decades, than to a nation he now thinks is his turn to lead. Because he spent the last few decades surrounded by other elites discussing lofty goals for their plan for a better world. For them. With side plans on how the rest of us are to be dealt with, because if you think, for 1 second, the general populace was ever a main consideration in all this, you probably helped elect Trudeau. And now it's this guy's turn. Some others wish it were their turn, but it's not up to them, or us apparently, or so they have grown to believe. And I'm hoping we can show them the error of their ways with a solid spanking come election day, no matter what mascot they're using. But again, that's just my opinion. And in this case, my hope. Let me know what you think in the comments. And thanks for watching.
So there she is there, the Celtic Canuck. You can find her on YouTube. She's got 27,000, well, more than 27.4 thousand subscribers. And that's because she does a fantastic job. Okay, we're done with that. So, one more thing before we go to the all access portion of the show, to the extension on shadowdavis.com. And there's a couple of extra things I want to get in there tonight. One of them is a great lecture on Marxism from a Harvard professor. What is Marxism? What is socialism? How did we get here? That is absolutely fantastic. And also, there is a senator, not a senator, wanted to be a senator. He's a former American Green Beret. He's a lawyer. His name is Ivan Raiklin. And there's a 20-minute conversation he has about $80,000 former military who were going to be deputized to arrest the American deep state. All of them. I'm not sure if I believe it. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty close to saying, nah, this is a bunch of crap. But you never know. You never know. So we're going to play that for you in the all access extension in just a couple of minutes. Final thing tonight on the main social media platforms, Pierre Poilievre's new idea. He wants to get rid of the carbon tax on gas and diesel, at least for the summer. Let's watch.
Common sense conservatives are calling for an end to gas.
And look where he is. I'm sorry to interrupt him. Look where he is. He's in BC. And look at the price there. Do you see that? That's obviously there intentionally. $199.9 for a liter of gasoline in British Columbia. That's insane.
And diesel taxes from Victoria Day till Labor Day to give Canadians a summer break. We call on the Prime Minister to do this. It will reduce gas prices by 35 cents a liter, allowing families to get on the road and go off to their favorite campsite, maybe a cottage or a cabin, do some fishing, some hunting, or just get away for a weekend. Canadians need that now more than ever with how miserable things are going in this country of ours. It's a common sense step that the government could do. And if you wonder how we could pay for it, this Prime Minister is spending $21 billion on consultants. $21 billion. Money that could be in the pockets of Canadians. 100% increase on the money going to high-priced consultants like those that gave us the Arrive scam scandal. Cut back on those consultants, put the money back in the pockets of Canadians, give Canadians a fuel tax holiday of 35 cents a liter from Victoria Day all the way to Labor Day. This is the least that we could do.
I would tend to agree with that. It's the very least you can do, but at least it's something. Oh, one more story. I'm sorry. I'm going to stay on for one more here. I thought this was interesting. I wanted to share with all of you guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to keep giving you the, well, I'm going to, and then stay on. RCMP officers uncomfortable with political pressure emergencies act during Freedom Convoy. This from an internal report. Very interesting. That the RCMP were having very difficult moments during the convoy. An RCMP review of the federal police response to the Freedom Convoy reveals that officers were uncomfortable with the unprecedented invocation of the Emergencies Act and felt immense pressure from government officials. Government officials are not supposed to be involved at all in policing. Elected, non-elected, doesn't matter. They're not supposed to be involved at all in policing. They can give direction, and from there, it stays with the department. The report, called National After Action Review into the RCMP's response to the Freedom Convoy, by the way, over 2 years ago now, was made public last week. One of the key concerns raised by officers involved in the response was that they were uncomfortable in exercising the additional powers granted to police by the invocation of the Emergencies Act. Respondents felt it was unclear what impact the invocation of the Emergencies Act had on the police response and police authorities, and furthermore, some respondents expressed they felt uncomfortable applying the peace officer authorities granted once the Emergencies Act was invoked, as they did not feel they had a clear understanding of those authorities, wrote the RCMP. Some respondents who were deployed in the National Capital Region also indicated they felt uncomfortable enforcing certain legislation because the police of jurisdiction did not appear to be taking enforcement action. Although the Liberal government maintained that the police were independent and at arm's length from government officials, officers responding to the protest reported that the need to provide hourly intelligence updates for ministers and the government's politicization of policing harmed their efforts. Interviewees also indicated there were issues with information and intelligence that was disseminated to external Government of Canada agencies. Specifically, some Government of Canada partners would misrepresent the information or misattribute third-party information as RCMP information. Now, we absolutely know that that happened. We also know that the government and the RCMP have been using content from the Anti-Hate Network of Canada as fact. And that information has been paid for. That left-wing extremist information, which is all a bunch of lies, was paid for partially by the Government of Canada. Interesting, that. That is it for the show tonight on social media, you guys. I still have much more to converse with you about on the extension on shadowdavis.com. So why not get yourself a membership and come and see us over there? The show is off tomorrow and on Saturday. I'll return on Sunday night at 8 o'clock Central on shadowdavis.com for the all-access exclusive show on Sunday night. Then we're back on all the channels, all the networks on Monday night. That means Facebook and X and Telegram and where else? Twitch and maybe YouTube. And did I miss one? Rumble. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for your support. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you again either in 2 minutes if you're an all-access member, or in a couple of days on Monday night at 8 o'clock for another Shadow at Night live stream. I will talk to you soon or later. Bye for now.